Coming back home to the US from our trip to Nova Scotia, the customs officer asked me why we had chose to visit. And I said, because it is such a beautiful place. And he looked at me with just the straightest blank face and said, there are many beautiful places in the world. Why did you choose to come here? It kind of left me at a loss for words, because that really is the reason why we wanted to visit. And eventually he led us through. So it got me thinking afterwards that it really is a fantastic place for a vacation. And so I wanted to share with you some of the highlights of our trip there and why it's such a great place to visit. So day one, we arrive in Halifax and I was hungry. Well, Kurt will tell you I'm always hungry, but I was ready to have lunch as soon as we got out of the Halifax airport. So our first stop was just outside of Elmsdale. We found this cute little cafe called Cup of Soul, and it was just a short drive off the main highway, which was nice. And one of the things that I was really looking forward to on this trip was all the seafood, the lobster and the crab in particular, as they're native to this area because they live in the rocky shores that line the coastline here of the island. So as a result, I had the seafood chowder and it was delicious. It was loaded with all different kinds of seafood and it was so good. I actually decided then that it was going to be my quest to have some type of seafood every day of this trip. So our plan was to stay the first 2 nights in Sydney and to use this as a home base to explore the east side of Cape Breton Island. The drive there was really pretty. One of the things that I really love about this area in Canada, it's the miles and miles of lupine that grow wild along all the highways. In Sydney, we stayed at the Royal Hotel Sydney for our first 2 nights. It was an inexpensive and cute little boutique hotel that we booked through Airbnb. Now, Carmen, the owner, she greeted us as soon as we got there and showed us around the place. It is a lovely older building that was actually built back in 1875, and it's been in her family for over half a century. The fun thing I think about staying in a place like this is it seems like it increases the potential for making some new little friendships along the way, or fun connections. The lobby, it just had this warm, welcoming feel. And so we had a delightful chat with a gentleman from Denmark on business there, as well as just, some side conversations with hotel guests during our stay too. Now, I don't know if you know this or not, but one thing I want to share with you is that studies have shown that connections like these, just striking up short little conversations with strangers, can actually lead to an overall increase in your level of happiness. Some researchers will call them a social snack. And you're more likely, I think, to feel comfortable having this kind of little social snack at a small, unique hotel like this one we stayed in. Day 2, you have to cross a couple of waterways on your way over to the Cabot Trail. If you're coming from the Sydney area, you may end up wanting to take the ferry at Englishtown. That is, if you're heading north up the trail, up the Cabot Trail like we were. I was actually surprised that we didn't have to pay, and that's because these ferries are operated by the province of Nova Scotia. It's a very small ferry. It probably only holds 12 to 15 cars, and it only took us a few minutes to cross the channel. However, I understand that the wait times to get on the ferry can be up to an hour if you're coming during peak season. We actually were there in late June, so we didn't have to wait at all. The views coming across were absolutely gorgeous, but if this is even possible, as soon as you hit the Cabot Trail, it just seems to get even better. This definitely is probably one of the prettiest drives I have ever taken in my life. It's just miles and miles of watching waves crash against the rocky shoreline. So if that kind of thing is something that appeals to you, you'll love it. I was a little worried that there might not be much in the way of places to stop and get a bite to eat along the Cabot Trail, but that's not the case. It wasn't very far up the road at all after we got off the ferry crossing that we found a place called the Clucking Hen Cafe and Bakery.
As usual, there's way too many wonderful looking things to pick from. But we're going to go with these for lunch. And I want a blueberry turnover because I haven't had one of those in forever. And then these little butter pecan tarts sound amazing too.
Once we got back on the road, it really seemed like no time at all before we were entering Cape Breton Highland National Park. We decided to stop at the visitor center, which is a good idea. There's no signs, but you do need to stop because you have to pay an entrance fee. And at least depending on the time of year that you're traveling, we just had to pay for the one day, because after that, for the rest of the summer, there's no fees for the national parks in Canada, which is really nice. The ranger there recommended Middlehead for a hike, and I'm really glad that we took his advice because it was perfect. It's a 2.5-mile loop, and it takes you out on this long, thin peninsula, and there were wildflowers and ferns, lots of ocean views, everything you could hope for on a hike at that particular area. And then when we got out to the end of the peninsula, we just sat there for a while and took in the views, watched the baby seagulls with their mamas, and sampled the pastries and some fruit that we had packed in. It ended up being the perfect spot for a picnic. And then we spent the rest of the day just stopping at other beautiful little places just right off the coast. We climbed on rocks and we breathed in the fresh ocean air and just really enjoyed the scenery. That evening, we decided to walk down the boardwalk that is along the waterfront at Sydney. I was hoping that I might be able to get a lobster dinner at the Governor's Pub and Eatery. It turned out to be really nice. We got to sit outside, and I did get my lobster. The food was delicious. It's definitely a place I would recommend if you end up staying in Sydney.
And we are getting ready to hike on a waterfall here, so I've decided to go ahead and switch into my hiking boots. The other thing that I thought I'd mention is that I think that this time of year, in early to mid-June, we're here, actually I guess mid to late June, is a fantastic time for visiting this area. While there's been, a fair amount of people on the road, it's not been a lot of people, and I think if we had gone in the middle of the summer, it would have been a little more people than we would have liked. The other nice thing about going this time of year is the wildflowers are just gorgeous everywhere. It's just been so beautiful. I think we're all set here and getting ready to take off.
I'm not sure what this guy's going to do with this. Oh, he's going to have a nice soft bed tonight.
I really loved this hike, and I would highly recommend it. It was an easy stroll in the woods alongside an actively flowing creek, and the trail ended at a waterfall that was really pretty. It was probably like around 2.6 kilometers total. It was a really nice hike. Afterwards, we went back to Baddeck, and I got my seafood for the day at the Freight Shed, which sits on the waterfront. It was a gorgeous place to sit outside and have a meal, and I couldn't resist getting another cup of seafood chowder. It was completely different from the one I had a few days ago, but just as good. Home base on this west side of the island for us was in a loft that is above the home of artist Doug Fraser, who lives just outside the city of Inverness. And it was a really cute little place. One of the best things that I liked about it was the deck just outside the loft. You just go outside the sliding glass doors, and he's got some little table and chairs there that you can sit and look out over the coast and his sculpture gardens, which a few of those light up at night. But most of all, the sunsets from this vantage point were just nothing short of breathtaking. Inverness is known for sunsets, so they were really beautiful both nights. Day 4, we hit the road again northward and went back up the Cabot Trail to hike the Skyline Trail was the intent. Because the views there are reported to be spectacular. It's like one of the best known hikes. Unfortunately, the day we were there was a lot of dense misty fog and the winds were really blowing strong. So we ended up turning around not far in and decided to seek out a trail that was a little bit further inland. So just a little ways up the road, we stopped at a boardwalk that it goes around and through a bog, and that was really interesting. It was an interpretive hike, and I would definitely recommend stopping there. I liked it. And then after that, we did a hike to Benji's Lake. This is a less popular trail, but we really liked it, despite the fact that we didn't find a moose like we were hoping we might find as we were hiking back to a secluded lake. Driving back to the loft that day, we were rewarded with just more amazing views of the coastline. You just can't get enough of the scenery along that drive. It was fantastic. By the time we got back, the wind had died down, and so we decided to check out the beach in Inverness and see if we were able to find some of the sea glass that this particular beach is famous for. We came up empty-handed there, but we did find some the next day when we were a little bit further south on another beach. This sweet little Airbnb is a working farm that's owned by Heather Squires, aka the Curd Girl. Heather is a native of Newfoundland, and here at her working farm, she has a commercial kitchen where she offers up some really beautiful charcuterie boards. She's got breakfast baskets that are really good. She teaches cheese making workshops, and all this while caring for a herd of retired goats and just her whole farm. It's amazing, a fun place to stay if you find yourself visiting this part of Nova Scotia. Our morning hike this day was to a place called Castle Rock. Now, the trail access to this hike is no longer accessible, so it forces you to hike another 3 kilometers before you ever get started. But it was a really pretty walk to the trailhead regardless, so we didn't mind at all, and the hike afterwards was worth it. It was, I would call it moderately rugged, and you had to do a little bit of rock scrambling at the end, but if you did that, you're just rewarded with some beautiful views all directions. We had packed in a little picnic lunch, so we sat up there and ate lunch. It was delightful. Then for the afternoon, we went to a place called Tangled Garden in Grand Prix, which is on the west side of the island. And that I was really in my element there, just wandering around the garden, smelling flowers, just taking pictures and trying to identify all the flowers that I knew. We wrapped up the day with a really lovely wine tasting at the Domaine Grand Prix. We enjoyed everything that we sampled there, so if you're looking for that kind of experience, I would recommend that as a place to go. It was time to head back to Halifax for the flight home, but not before visiting the iconic Peggy's Cove, which is the most photographed lighthouse in Canada and really a recognized landmark worldwide. It's surrounded by just this picturesque fishing village, and it's really easy to see why it's one of the busiest and most popular tourist attractions in Nova Scotia. Just had to have one last try at lobster here. Normally I'm not a big fan of lobster rolls, but they have something called naked lobster roll, which doesn't have all the mayonnaise and such in it to, in my opinion, like diminish the taste of the lobster. So we'll see what this is like. So we got soft buttery bun, and well, yeah, it was buttery bun, but also like buttery lobster with a really good seasoning on it. It's a very good lobster roll. So that wraps up our trip to Nova Scotia. We actually will be doing a little bit more traveling here in the next month and a half, so I probably will be doing some additional travel related videos if you like this kind of thing. The other thing I like to do here on my channel is share some of my experiences and what's worked for me in trying to live my life more intentionally, being healthy as I age, and positive, staying positive. So if those are type of things that you would like to join me on that type of a journey, I would love to have you share this time with me, and you can subscribe to the channel and follow along. I'd love that. And regardless, hope you have an amazing day, and thank you for watching.